Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, the Poor English Lord. Today we're going to start a brand new series. Fantastic. This series is going to be on painting. Miniature model painting, to be precise. And my aim is to go for the beginner, people who are new to the hobby, new to painting, whatever that painting may be, whether it be wargaming figures or model tanks or aircraft, that sort of thing. I hope to teach you a few new tricks, some tips, things that I've learned in my experience. And I hope you all very much enjoy. This first video will be on the equipment that you will need to start you off in painting, and a few extra bits which make life a little bit easier. We're going to be really starting with the basics. So if you are an experienced painter, feel free just to pass this video on to any friends you might have who are new to the hobby, and, well, you could watch it if you want, it's up to you. Anyway, the basic tools. We'll start with number one, the clippers. These are lovely little inventions. They're very important because you're going to need to find some way of removing your plastic part from the sprue. If you cannot remove the part for your model from the sprue, painting is going to be very difficult and you will not have a finished model by the end. These clippers have done some pretty long service. They're my father's, and now they've done a fair few years with me. They have a few dinks and dents where I tried to cut through bits that weren't plastic. I was wrong to think they could manage that. They're primarily plastic. I don't know how well to show on the camera, if I can just get it right. Yes. So you have a flat face and a sort of concave face where it drops in along here. The flat face is what you use primarily to cut. I'm going to give you a little example because I know some people, I don't like the way they do this. Here we have our shield we're going to remove. Ensure the flat face is up against where you're going to cut, and snip. Don't cut too close to the part. If you cut too close to the part, what you'll end up doing, unfortunately, is scarring the model. And you don't want to do that because that effectively damages the piece. You want to cut carefully, just leaving a little bit of plastic. This probably won't show, maybe it will. You've got a little nub of plastic just left, only a tiny bit, from cutting with the flat face. If you do dig in, you're going to cause a dent or a scratch or a scar in the model, which will cause you problems and will ruin the detail. So make sure you just leave that little bit of extra. You will remove this in the next sort of steps. Another component you'll probably want is a modelling knife, scalpel, something like that. Keep it sharp if you can. This one isn't, which makes it more dangerous, but I live a life of danger. It is my middle name after all. You can use this to remove that little bit of waste material by very, very carefully, so as not to cut yourself, just gently filing it away. You could alternatively use a file. There are some modelling files out there, or nail files, and this will go into the advanced piece of kit, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Next components, paintbrushes. You need paintbrushes to paint. You'll want a range of paintbrushes if you can, because you'll need the brush for different things. You'll want some larger brushes to paint bigger surfaces, and you'll want some smaller brushes to paint the more fine details. Self-explanatory. You're not going to be able to paint a tank with a little tiny brush like, is it going to focus? Like that. I can't get it to focus. It's a very small brush. You're going to spend a very long time trying to paint a whole 1/32 scale Sherman, for example. You'll want a bigger brush. Self-explanatory. I have a little range of brushes, and one brush I consider to be special. This is an old brush. It is knackered. The bristles are going. It's really falling apart. But it's my erasing brush. This is I don't know if anyone else teaches. I don't think it's any of the books or in any of the other videos you might find. A little erasing brush. If you make a mistake, which does happen, you can grab your little erasing brush, which is at hand, ready for emergencies, dip in a bit of clean water before the paint dries, really, really quickly, rub out that spillage of paint, effectively. Useful things to have. I'm not all talk. Next up, glue. Glue is important. You need to be able to put the model together. There are lots of different types. I'm not sponsored by the Humbrol brand, but I do quite like this particular glue. I do quite like this particular glue. It does the job. It's a poly cement. Poly cements work by melting the two parts of plastic together, so you won't need a lot of glue. Just a tiny drop generally does the trick for most things. it will bond to the glue very, very strongly quite quickly. It won't work on things like fine cast or metal miniatures. They won't hold polycement because it's for melting glue, not melting plastic, not for bonding metals. Which is where your super glue comes in. Once again, not sponsored by any company, but super glue is very good to stick your fingers together, as we all know, but it's also what you'll need to stick metal or fine cast miniatures together. I don't know, there might be another name for it. I'm just using the Citadel name, Citadel fine cast. I don't know if that's a universal thing or if it's just Citadel, it's a brand. I'm not entirely sure on that. I should have checked before the video. What's up next? Painting palette. This is an expensive Games Workshop painting palette. You could probably get any piece of plastic, bowl, something like that, plate, will do the trick. This is just so you can mix your few little paints together. If you're trying to thin paints, you could have a little couple of drops of paint on here, mix it with a bit of water, or if you're trying to darken or lighten a paint, you know, just adding little drops of different colours in, mixing them up. All, you know, fairly self-explanatory. Again, like these are the basics. A little bit of rag, cleaning your brushes, cleaning up mess, that sort of thing. You'll need it. I'm not saying you will make a mess, but you will make a mess. Cups. These will normally have water in, but they don't, because otherwise I'd spill them. You need water. I tend to have 2 cups. This isn't because I'm greedy, but I have 1 cup for clean water and 1 cup for dirty water. So I'll wash my brush in this, and I'll use this for mixing. I know this cup is a dirty cup, but it's a terrible bad example, but it does do the job, and it keeps the water separate. The challenge is not to drink it, and the other challenge is not to dip your paintbrush in your tea. I've done that before, and the tea was quite nice. Paints. People probably have a lot of questions about paints. You know, the colours, how well the paints work, that sort of thing. The best thing to do really is to find this out for yourself and find personal preference. I have a few preferences, I don't know, but generally any paint sort of works, because yeah, this paint might be some magically expensive one, but how much better is it? You have to justify the price. If it's only marginally better, then, you know, is it worth the price? Also, brand loyalty is a bit of a problem, because I find that some paints, you know, they have yellow, which I don't think is as good as another brand of paints yellow. So I'm not particularly brand loyal, so I will use a range of paints, and in future videos I'll try and give you the equivalent paints for different companies, because you might not have that paint at hand and you don't need to go out and buy specifically a brand or type of paint. I use primarily Tamiya, which is that one. Not the only paint I have, but I have Tamiya paints, Citadel paints, and let's grab this one, Scale Colour paints. Tamiya paints are the paints I first started with, because I first started painting like model tanks, model aircraft, that sort of thing, and I moved into wargaming, specifically Warhammer 40,000, which is where I get my Citadel paints from, because obviously they push you for that. And very recently I've got into more like 75mm painting and stuff like that scale. So once again I'm trying out some new paints. I haven't got a lot to say on the Scale Colour yet, other than my initial impressions are very good. It seems like quite a good quality paint, not too expensive, and obviously a decent sized bottle. I think each bottle is about £2. I don't know whether it's in foreign money, but £2 English. I think Citadel are obviously a bit more expensive. Tamiya I think are similar to the Scale Colour. Quality wise they're all pretty good. There's nothing I can really say on, they all meet the quality. Citadel obviously have the famed the magical cap, which a lot of people blame for drying out the paints. Some Citadel paints of mine have dried out, but I can't definitely say it was the fault of the lid. It could well have been my fault. Tamiya paints work out quite well. I've never had any of them really dry by accident. You know, leaving the pot open will dry your paint. And Scale Colour, once again, it seems like quite a good way of doing it. They have a little sort of injecting nipple, which is quite good for when you're mixing paints. A lot of Scale Colour books and what have you, when you read through them, will always talk about mixing paints. That's what they're big on, mixing the paints and blending. So you have the little nipple to drop off precise amounts of drops of glue. Glue, paint. I don't know why I've got the two confused today. It's very hot when I'm recording this, and I don't like the heat. I'm an Englishman, we like wet, damp and grey. So that concludes the basic equipment. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments and I might make a follow-up video because I feel like I've forgotten a lot to say. But hopefully I've covered the basics, you all sort of understand the basics you'll need. More advanced stuff to come now. Once again, an expensive branded Citadel model holder. You could improvise your own. There are probably other companies that do this. I have in the past. I have one here. It's a paperclip that I've unfolded. I drill a small hole into the foot, say, of the model, into his leg, stick that in, and you now have a stand. And you can stand your model there with him stood on his foot or his base, whatever, stuck to that. There are other ways around it, but this is a Citadel one, and Citadel are quite good at. I have an unfinished model here. They'll standardise it so it will hold. Hope it doesn't pop out and ruin my whole argument. It holds it quite well, and then you can get a larger one for larger, like vehicle bases, dreadnought bases, stuff like that. But this is quite nice because you can hold your model and paint it, and you can get quite a decent grip on it. Sometimes, when you're trying to hold your miniature and you have him on the base, your thumbs can get in the way. You know, I've got big fat fingers. Your thumbs get in the way. You're trying to spray, or you're trying to do the edge of his base. Where do you hold it? You know, if you start holding the bits of model, you might damage them or get paint. You know, if you add it on your fingers, you've got to find a way of painting around his lips because it makes it look a bit more finished. I find having it mounted on something or something, you know, holding it makes it a lot easier. And then, oh, actually, we'll do this one first. This is a mould line remover. There's probably alternatives. It's a bit of blunt metal, which does the same job as you could do with a scalpel or the modelling knife by removing. It's a bit more gentle. It removes that little bit of excess plastic, and you can also use it to file down any mould lines. Now, for those of you who don't know what a mould line is, I'll try and give a quick example, explanation. All of these are made by injection moulding. All these sprues are made by injection moulding, where effectively two pieces of metal with a shape indented into them, pushed together, and plastic is injected into them at high pressure, fills it out, dries, two plates pop open, and the sprue falls out. And this can happen over and over and over again quite quickly. The problem is that's not a perfect bond. That's not perfectly flat. There will be there's a potential for a small little overlap of plastic to leak out, and that gives you a little raised edge. Remove that edge. I see it time and time again, particularly with younger people new to painting. They leave that edge and they paint their model, and they're so proud of it, they're so happy, and they show you, and the effect is ruined by that little bit of excess plastic because it ruins the detail. It doesn't make it look right. They haven't put the effort into removing that because they thought it wouldn't be too bad. It's only a very slight lump, effectively, that runs the line, the edge of the model where the two plates were when they came apart. And it does ruin your model. And it's so easy to remove, either with your modelling knife or with something a bit blunt. This is a bit of a safer option, effectively. Do remove mould lines. It will make a massive difference to the finished look of the model. The next up, more brushes, specialised brushes that only really do one thing. This brush has gone very stiff. I'm a very strong man. I can't peel this apart because it's been used to varnish. When I do water effects, which I should hopefully make a video for, because there's always lots of questions about water effects. No one's entirely sure the best way of doing them. Varnish obviously will ruin your brush because it will stick together. This, I can warm it up and it will start being flexible again, but it doesn't need to be too flexible. It's only just pasting varnish on. But I can't now paint with this because it is hard as nails. Alternatively, this is a dry brush, which is a large bristled brush, quite stiff, that you use to do a dry brushing effect. Once again, there's going to be a separate video on that. You might have some other specialised brushes. You know, there's a few brushes I use just for PVA glue, and so on and so on and so on. Specialised brushes. Normally these will be brushes you bought just for that purpose, they're a bit cheaper, or these sort of brushes which have eventually perished and you're just trying to get the last bit of value for money out of them. And I think finally, my little drill box. Twist drills, hand drill, whatever you want to call it. Unfortunately it's written in French, the sizes, so I'm not entirely sure this would be in English money, but it's 0.3 to 1.6 mm's, which I assume stands for millimetres. I'm not entirely sure. Sorry for the joke. It's not a very good one, that's why I'm sorry. I like to use these little drills for all sorts of useful purposes, primarily drilling holes. They don't do a lot else other than that, but you can drill a lot of things. You can drill places on to fit magnets or pins if you want to have your models be able to interchange weapons or arms or whatever, or heads. You can use them to drill gun barrels out. Do I have a little gun barrel I can... Yes, aha, there's one on here. Am I going to be able to get it into... yeah. I'm backwards, the camera's obviously backwards for me. You can see the muzzle flash in there, the sort of muzzle brake. It has a little hole through it. That's filled in on the model because it's beyond the limits of the injection process to get rid of that. And also there won't be a hole running into the gun. It won't run through the barrel. And obviously on longer rifles and stuff like that, you still won't have it. So what you can do is you get your little drill, you find an appropriate sort of size or scale, if you can find, if you're trying to make a 75mm gun in 1/72nd scale, do the maths, and you'll be able to find out the exact diameter that barrel would have to be the same scale as if it was in real life. I don't have that because I'm dealing with, like I say, primarily wargaming figures which are not to scale. So what you do is you find an appropriately sized drill bit for what you think it should be, and you can drill you don't have to drill all the way through. If you've got a guy with a sniper rifle that's, a couple inches long, you don't have to drill all the way through, because it's just going to be darkness for most of it. Just drill a little bit in, just so it falls into shadow, and you can't see down it any further, and then paint around that. And what it'll do is it will really make your model that little bit of extra pizzazz, that little bit of extra goodness, makes it look that little bit extra more finished, perfected, because it has that little bit extra detail. That's the most I've said a little bit extra in a very long time. This is actually the 4th time I've recorded this video, so all of my jokes I've forgotten what I've been talking about, because every time I've had a problem with the recording, so 4th time's the charm. I am persistent, if nothing else. And now I've forgotten what I'm talking about. Ah yes, I don't know why I left this to the end, but I have. The most important thing you're going to need, by far, to start painting, other than this series of tutorial videos, is a model. That's right, you're going to need something to paint. And this will be the focus of our first few videos. Obviously, feel free to ask for any particular things you want me to teach you about, any other particular effects or something, whatever it may be, methods, techniques, and I'll try and make a video specifically on that, to focus more on the detail, precisely on it. But this is going to be the first model I'm going to start with. I bought him quite recently. I've only just opened the box to have a look at him. He's got a lot of things that should hopefully be quite good at making a good, decent video. We're talking about lots of different techniques and methods and the process of painting. He is the Dark Angels Ancient. Learn to speak. The Dark Angels Ancient. He's got a big banner. I like banners. He's got cloaks. I like cloaks. He's got armour. I like armour. He's probably got a gun, and he's got a weapon, a chainsword. And I like chainsaws, and I like swords. You put the two together, it's pretty awesome. So he's going to be the first one, but I will do others. There will be vehicles, other fantasy models, other 40k models, perhaps some larger figurines and that sort of thing, and maybe some scale vehicles like I say Shermans or whatever. I have a few of those lying around somewhere. Yes, I think that just about wraps it up for today. Hopefully this recording hasn't failed. If it has, I'm going to be very sad, but I'll come back and I'll do recording number 5. Let's hope it's all okay. I hope you've all enjoyed. I hope you're looking forward to the new series. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.